I want to start today with a question. Why do we study government? Why? Can anybody give me an idea? Come on, hands. Why do we study government? Everybody but this table. In the back here. Okay. Anybody else? Why would you study government? Why is it important? Because we are all consumers of government. All of us. We have municipal water. We have police and fire services. We have, good grief, we drive on city roads and county roads and state roads. We receive services in exchange for the tax dollars that we pay. Anybody in here have a job? Hands. I know there's a whole bunch of y'all with jobs. So if you have a job, what do you have to pay? Everybody's favorite thing, paying taxes, right? Okay. Well, you have a say in how those taxes are distributed, but only if you're involved. So but how do you get involved? You have to understand how the whole system works. And that's why we study government. Now, we are blessed today to have a representative from the Huntsville City Council. Her name is Kathy Rooker, and she is the administrative aide to the Huntsville City Council. If you'd like to come and join me. She's going to tell us about the process of getting ordinances passed. Anybody know how that works? Good, then we're all going to learn. Awesome. Give her a big hand.
Nobody told me I was going to have to be on camera, so I'm going to try to breathe a little bit here. Thank you for inviting a representative from the City Council. I'm sure one of the council members would have loved to have been here, but this is City Council meeting day, and these are the craziest days of our month. Quite frankly, I'm getting text messages over there about things that are happening in the council office. Anyways, this is kind of a perfect collision of a lot of aspects of my life and background. My husband's a vet, and he have a very personal connection with Tuck Fan. So it's kind of interesting that came up. And I did youth assembly in high school, and I taught sign language years ago. So it's kind of an interesting mesh of things colliding today. As the admin aide in the council office, we do all the back end work. What you guys see a lot of times are the council members out in the public, maybe giving speeches, maybe you read an article in the newspaper and all that. Well, there's a lot of activity behind the scenes that kind of make all that happen. And so it's interesting that's where I've landed career-wise as I started out youth assembly, and then I got involved in the schools, and then I ran for school board 5 years ago, so I have my taste in politics, which I could talk for days about that, and then and now I'm in the council office. So I want to find out, because I know there's people that live all over, so I want everyone to stand up for a second. I know y'all have been sitting for a while, so come on in. You can roll your eyes. I've got teenagers. I know the drill. Okay, so everyone, I'm going to wait till everyone, there you go. I know. All right. If you do not live in the Huntsville city limits, I want you to go ahead and sit down. Okay, and that's what I figured. I knew this was a kind of a wide group. So the rest of you live in Huntsville city limits, is that correct? Okay, if you live in District 1, have a seat. If you live in District 2, have a seat. If you live in District 3, have a seat. We're getting to that. District 4, have a seat. District 5. 4. Bill Kling, yep. Okay, if you don't know, have a seat. Yep. And I'm not surprised, but I'm going to challenge each of you to go home and figure out what district you live in. There are maps on Huntsville cities to figure out what district you live in and to learn who your city council member is. You guys talk about government, federal government, state government, and then we've got local government. And we had this conversation yesterday that I believe you can make truly the biggest impact locally. So find out who your elected officials are and get to know them. If you guys want to come up to the council office, give us a call. Say, I want to come to the council office. We can arrange that. We can show you the chambers. We can introduce you to your council member. Okay? This is a great way to really get your feet on the ground and to learn firsthand. So there are 5 districts. I went through 1 through 5 in the city of Huntsville. Our city council members, well, first, before I say, I've kind of already given a little bit of it away, but who is the executive branch federally? Who's the head of the executive branch? federally? Anybody? The president. Okay. Woo! What's the legislative branch? Thank you. I'm just want to stand up and answer them all. No, I'm kidding. And then, of course, we have the Supreme Court, right? So there's 3 branches of government. At the state level, there's also 3 branches of government. Who's the head of the executive branch at the state level? Thank you. And and then we have, of course, the House and the Senate and representatives. So at the city level, let's see what we know here. Who is the head of the executive branch at the city level? The mayor, absolutely correct. So who is the legislative branch at the city level? It's the city council, right? So that's kind of where we're at. And there's a lot of conflict even within our office and the other parts of the city because we are the legislative branch and then we have the mayor up here at the executive branch, and built into our government from the 1700s is internal conflict, right? It's conflict on purpose for the checks and balances. So it's kind of interesting being at this local level and still feeling that conflict a lot. Even today, there was an argument about what could go on the agenda between the executive branch and the legislative branch. We had to go to the Code of Ordinances to look at the fact that we had until 5 o'clock on Tuesday to put that item on the agenda. So whereas you have laws, you think of it at the state level, at the city level, it's called ordinances, okay? And another important point about the city government in Huntsville, and this is not every city is set up the same. So in Huntsville, your city council members are elected and your mayor's elected. In other cities, municipalities, which is a fancy word for cities, they may be appointed. There's pros and cons to both, but what you need to know about your city here in Huntsville is that they are elected. They're also nonpartisan. Does anybody know what that's kind of a fancy word. Y'all probably know it. Y'all are smart kids. What does nonpartisan mean? The elections are nonpartisan, I should say. Anyone? Did y'all fall asleep on me?
It doesn't go by political parties.
Absolutely. So when you run on your platform, you don't designate whether or not you're Republican or you're a Democrat. Now, do you think the public accepts that in a lot of ways? No. I ran for school board, and the first question was, what party are you? And I'm like, this is a nonpartisan race. I don't care. What party do you support? Because that kind of aligns you with certain principles and different things. But it is important to know that you don't declare your party in a municipal election in Huntsville. Now, if you go look, there are other cities across the country that do have partisan races where you would declare that. So we're the legislative branch. I talked about that. When ordinances go before the council and they get voted on, the mayor can veto them, just like the governor can veto things and the president can veto things. We just had a couple months ago where the city council wanted to give themselves a big raise. I don't know if anyone remembers that being in the news. It was quite popular. We got 1 million phone calls in our office about that. And the mayor felt like the raise was too big and he actually vetoed it. Well, at that point, it went back to the council and they were going to try to override it. Thought they had the votes to get the override. They needed 4 out of 5. They did not. It did not get overridden. So anyways, so even at the city level, a lot of the same activities occur. They're just called a little bit different things and they're handled a little different ways. All right. So like I said, we have ordinances. I gave you this fancy sheet that I borrowed, didn't steal. I borrowed off the internet that sort of talks about how ordinances go through the system. I'll talk about one that we have right now. I'll just kind of talk about it through the system. So we had a citizen, okay, this is how you can impact things, who complained about their neighbor's dog barking. And they called and complained and then called and complained and called and complained. So one of our council members has taken this issue on, and they are now meeting with the animal control services, and we're pulling ordinances from all over different cities all around the state and around the country to look at what the current ordinance is, okay, which is the law on dog barking. All right. And there really isn't a whole lot in our city on it. If you go look at other cities, if the dog barks excessively for 2 hours or an hour, it's all defined differently, then you can get cited and you can get fined. Typically, a lot of our ordinance don't involve being arrested. It's more, a lot of times it's getting cited for something or a fine of some sort and things like that. So if this Councilman Kling, if he decides that he wants to take up this issue, what he then will do is go to our legal department and have them draft a modification to the existing ordinance. There may be hundreds of ordinance, say, for example, on community development and code enforcement of different things in terms of like your grass height, right? So there may be, and what they do is they modify whatever the existing ordinance is. And then if it passes, then it goes into what's called the Muni Code or the Municipal Code, which are kind of the laws of the city. So anyway, so if he takes on the dog barking issue, he will research the ordinances. The law department probably will. We may help. They will write up a resolution or an ordinance, to modify that code, and then it'll get voted on by the city council. It takes 3 of 5 votes in order to pass that ordinance. If it gets passed, then it goes to our Muni Code people who take all the existing ordinances and this new layer of an ordinance, and then they convert it into our municipal code, which is then the law of the land. Y'all can go out right now to the Huntsville City website and you can research the municipal code and see what the laws are for different things. I brought today this community development pamphlet, and there's one for all of you guys. This, of course, will be more relevant for those of you that live in the city, but it's kind of a good idea of how ordinances come about. So, for example, how many of you know that in the city of Huntsville that your grass and weeds must be cut below 8 inches in height? Yep, I didn't either until I started in the office. So if your grass gets over that and your neighbor complains, which is really, truthfully, how a lot of things happen, an inspector will come out, see that your grass is too high, give you 14 days to get it fixed. If you don't get it fixed, they may remind you a second time, and then they may fine you money. They may come out and cut it themselves and then fine you the expense of that. So it's not the reason why there's so many of these things, I think, as Ms. Gillian alluded to, is because we want to keep our city nice. You know, we want to be reasonable people, but it's how you kind of maintain some control. All right. So in this pamphlet are different things about swimming pools, fences, graffiti, all different things that our code enforcement team, tackle. We also have a zoning thing. On the back of this are a bunch of phone numbers for the city. So if you have an issue and you want to call a particular department, you can. If you don't know where to start, call the city council office. That's what we're there for. All right. So city council meetings, Tuesday, the 2nd and 4th Thursday of the month, can't get that out, at 5:30. You can come sit in the chambers. You don't have to go to Montgomery to watch government work. You can come to 308 Fountain Circle and watch your government work, okay? The meetings are long. You may just want to stay for an hour, but you'll get a good taste of how things sort of roll in the city. We also have the working arm, and this is how citizens at a local level can really get involved, is we have what's called boards and commissions. Every city basically has these, and they're different boards that are established. For example, we have a city tree commission, and so their job is to take note of this situation with trees in the city. I know it sounds crazy, but there's a lot of people who get very passionate about trees in our city. And so that's sort of they have their sort of their responsibilities laid out in an ordinance about what their powers are and different things like that. But we have 60 boards and commissions that we appoint people to from the city council office. There are over 500 people on our boards and commissions that we touch in the Huntsville city. So it's a great way to get involved as a constituent, just a general citizen. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up with politics. Politics are crazy. Okay, they really are. I have a friend who's on the school board in a small town in Georgia, 3 red lights, no kidding, 3 red lights. And it's just as political there as it is, probably down in Montgomery. Mike Ball, who is a state representative, one time said, candidates run on fear. They want to put fear into you to try to make you vote a certain way in elections. Keep that in mind when politicians are speaking to you and their platforms and different things. See if they're not trying to play on your fear, and try to sort through some of that and make an informed decision. I will also say a lot of you are getting close to 18. Go vote. Vote as many times as you can. The more you vote, then you become like an elite voter or a super voter. And those are the people that the candidates and stuff reach out to a lot more. And it's a great way to get more involved in what's happening politically in your city.
Thank you. Big hand. Yay. Thank you.
And I have to scoot out. I'm sorry. I would love to say